Well, hey everyone, it's Kristen, and I'm here with Peter, and we have an update for you. And the big news that we want to share is that EastLake will be wrapping up at the end of 2023. And we wanted to get together and talk and give some context, right, on how we got here.
Yeah, it's true. This is our final season. We're wrapping in 2023, and I think a little background on that. I mean, we've talked about for years, EastLake has always been an experiment, right?
Always.
An experimental community. And I think, even before COVID, we were talking about, like, what model are we going to do and what type of community? How often are we going to get together? And I think COVID really fast-forwarded us into this awareness that, like, we're not going to go back to 40 services a year with a team of employees that are kind of doing setup and tear down with a bunch of volunteers. That model wasn't going to work for you nor I, just from our life standpoint, let alone financially. We couldn't pull that off as an organization anymore, given where EastLake was at. But what we did land on was that we were going to keep existing online primarily, right? That we were going to keep putting discussions out there and podcasts out there. Thank you to so many people who sat in their living room recording 20-minute videos into nothingness, right? Just putting those out into the universe.
Podcasts over Zoom.
Zoom podcasts and all the fun things that went with that. And it's been a really fun chapter. I've enjoyed the last couple of years of creating all that content and collaborating with so many wonderful humans. But it also feels right that we're ready to move on to the next chapter too.
Yeah, I think we've always been trying to figure out how can we inspire people to live as a beneficial presence in the world. And I think the one thing that's important for people to hear is that at this point, we both feel really good about this decision and where we're at. It has never felt quite right until now. And I feel like we've kind of landed on, we've said what we needed to say, we've done what we wanted to do, we've tried what we wanted to try, and in the end, it feels like a very positive way to end. It feels sad to me, but it feels right. And so I think I also want people to know that we've reached out to Ryan and Michelle Meeks, who founded EastLake, and we've talked with them and started those conversations on how do they have visions or ideas for how they want this to officially wrap. But we still have stuff we have content that we're gonna produce over the next few months. More focused, I think, on how this ends and what we've learned and kind of our last things that we want to say. But it is positive. You know, EastLake has always been a revolving door. We've said that for years, that it's been really cool. People find EastLake when they need it, and then they leave when they've kind of gotten their fill. And it's been a really neat way to have an ever-changing community. And then we kind of joked around, like, I think the only people who haven't gone out of these revolving doors is you and me.
We're shutting it down.
We're shutting it down, and it feels like it's time. And I think we both feel good about that. So our plan is to keep people posted on the decisions we make about where does our content go, and can people still listen to podcasts, and what are we doing with our finances? And yes, we will be giving those away. Those are all logistics that need to be worked out, and we'll be sharing that information over the next few months.
I think the headline that we're wanting people to walk away with from this update is just one of gratitude, though. Certainly this chapter of EastLake is coming to a close, but we feel grateful that we've been able to have been a part of EastLake and have the opportunity to lead EastLake over the last few years. And I think also, just like, I'm wanting people who are watching, if you're paying attention to this or following along, just to hear a huge thank you from us. If you've ever donated $1 or followed along, even if you're following along watching this video, it means you're somewhat engaged with EastLake. Thank you for your participation in this community. For those of you that have served in a kid's room or set up a chair or backed up a trailer or ever listened to some message or some podcast and done something kind or better as a result, that is a huge sacrifice and something that we just want to acknowledge, as your participation has been critical to EastLake. And this community wouldn't have been the same without you. EastLake's never been a building. It's never been about a personality or a campus. EastLake's always been a community of people trying to live more intentionally and trying to live as a beneficial presence in the world. And so hopefully you hear from us. We're thankful.
Yeah. I think in that way too, what I've kind of been playing in my head as we've been talking about this is that EastLake doesn't really end because it's never been about a building or a person. It's been about growth and change and loving more. And if that has happened in anyone else as it's happened in me, then that doesn't actually wrap up.
Right.
It doesn't end. And in that way, I feel so grateful. So I think what I want to say is we're so thankful for anyone who has stopped by, who've come in these revolving doors over the years, and whether you stayed for one Sunday or one podcast, or whether this was a significant part of your journey for years. I hope those people know how grateful we are that they were a part of it and that they actually made it EastLake.
Yeah.
And because of that, it doesn't actually end.
So that's the update. EastLake is wrapping at the end of 2023. And I think for those of you watching, following along, thank you for your engagement. And we would encourage you to keep following along. We have a couple more pieces of content that we're excited to share, reflections on our journey at EastLake. And then hopefully even this update can be a reminder or inspiration for all of us, whether you've been a part of EastLake for the last forever, since day one, or you're a recent person who's following along. Hopefully you can just take a few minutes to reflect on how EastLake's impacted you, hopefully in a positive way. Thanks for watching.